Greetings and welcome to NATE Module 3 Unit 13 related to NBA Criterion 3. NBA Criterion 3 is related to course outcomes and program outcomes. We will be looking at the first part of that, and in the earlier unit we understood the teaching learning processes and the initiatives taken for improving the quality of assessment and learning to meet the requirements of Criterion 2 of SAR. And in the current unit, we will try to understand how to establish correlation between the courses and the POs and PSOs as per NBA Criterion 3.1 for Tier 2 and Tier 1 institutions. The Criterion 3 is concerned with the attainment of course outcomes initially, and through course outcomes how do you compute the attainment of program outcomes and program specific outcomes. This criterion and its subcriteria and the exhibits related to each criterion differ between Tier 2 and Tier 1 institutes besides the difference in the allocation of marks. The difference between the two is a little bit of terminology we will explain, but the allocation of marks for the subcriteria are somewhat different. Let us first get a picture of the difference between Tier 1 and Tier 2 institutions. Tier 1 institutions, they design their own curricula, they write their own COs, they have to write the correlation between COs and POs and so on. So, the marks given for Tier 1 is a little more than that of Tier 2. So, as you can see, overall this Criterion 3 has 175 marks for Tier 1 institution and 120 marks for Tier 2 institution. 3.1 is related to correlation between COs and POs and PSOs. So, here my small difference 25 and 20, and attainment of COs is the 3.2 and it has 75 marks for Tier 1 and 50 marks for Tier 2. And attainment of POs and PSOs, you have 75 marks for Tier 1 and 50 marks for Tier 2. Now, let us try to understand what do we mean by correlation between COs and POs and PSOs. So, here the difference between the two comes here. In Tier 2 institutions, evidence of COs being defined for every course. So, COs have to be defined for all courses, and the visiting team will inspect whether the program has written COs for all courses or not. So, one has to demonstrate the evidence of this. In 3.1.2 is related to explanation of CO, PO, PSO tables, and that means that you have to relate COs to POs and PSOs, and those tables and how they have been built, that explanation will be ascertained by the visiting committee. And similarly, explanation of program level course PO PSO tables also to be ascertained. That means at program level you have large number of courses and large number of common activities. These will all have to be integrated together to create a program level course. It is course, not CO, course PO PSO tables. As you can see in Tier 1, they are labeled as A, B, C, D, and A, C and D are the same as that of Tier 2, except that B is related to availability of COs embedded in the syllabi, because syllabus itself is written by the institute. The COs do they actually represent the syllabus? Strictly speaking, when you are designing the curriculum, COs have to be written first. From there you have to talk about what we presently call as syllabi, the list of topics should emerge from that. Though in practice people first write the list of topics and then try to write COs. When you start with COs and write syllabi, the criterion B is automatically met. Now let us come to the structure of how NBA expects. For each sub-criterion some guidelines are given and there are exhibits or the context to be observed, assessed. These are the ones that will be looked by the visiting committee. Either they will look at the exhibit or inspect the context to be observed, or what is to be assessed they will be looking at this. So these are the elements. You have a sub criterion, then you have guidelines, then you have exhibits to be looked at, and the department has to write the SAR with respect to these elements. Okay, 3.1.1 is related to course outcomes. Guideline is evidence of COs being defined for every course. How does the department create this evidence? In presenting COs, you will be presenting only for 3 courses from second, third and final year of study are prepared and presented as a part of are included in the SAR. That means you are only presenting 3 courses whose COs are 1 from each second, third and final year are to be included into the SAR document. But COs of all courses need to be prepared by the department. And the visiting committee may arbitrarily ask any course to be shown to them whether the COs have been written or not. So the documents related to writing COs of all the courses will have to be readily available either in a printed form or an electronic form. If the visiting committee asks the department, they should be able to immediately locate that document and present it to the committee. Okay. Now what is the exhibit? What do they assess actually in this case? The appropriateness of the statement shall be seen for at least one course each from second, third and final year of study. While the department has presented already second, third and final year, one from each year, a visiting committee may ask some other course from one of these years and inspect. So what happens after getting whatever courses they want to inspect? It is a subjective evaluation by the visiting committee whether the statements are appropriate or not. So if they find statements are appropriate for the samples that they have seen, they will award maximum of 5 marks for the 3.1.1. And here what happens, as the tier 2 institutions are affiliated to a university, the curriculum design and writing COs for all courses are done by the boards of studies of the university. And sometimes the BOS of the university will also do the mapping of COs to POs and PSOs, but they may or may not do it is not. Whereas a department in tier 2 institution may accept the COs in toto as given by the university, or if one is not very happy the way they are presented to them, the department may rewrite some or all the COs and their mapping to POs and PSOs. This part may be undertaken by the department, but if you do that, the only rule is that the same procedure of writing this should be followed across all the departments of the institution. That means each department in an institution cannot define for itself a particular process for this. Like for example, what should be the structure of CO statements? There should be some structure. So at the institute level it should be accepted. Similarly, what is the procedure of mapping COs to POs and PSOs should also be identified at the institute level and implemented. So, that decision is to be done by, if you have IQAC or at the institute level, you must have some group which will decide this. And here, while NBA directly does not mandate the use of revised Bloom's taxonomy framework for writing COs, but if you look at across the country, it has been the de facto accepted framework. Because when you are writing CO, you are starting with each CO belongs to some cognitive level of Bloom, and to that extent the revised Bloom's taxonomy is a de facto accepted framework. In this framework, COs are written starting with an action verb which belongs that belongs to one of the cognitive levels, followed by knowledge elements and followed by conditions which are optional and criteria which are also optional. We have spent considerable time in module 1 how to write COs for a course following this particular framework. But the COs need to be written for the content given by the university. Technically, it is required to start with COs and write the syllabus, but it happens the other way. So, the content is already given by the university. So, you cannot write your own COs or you cannot redesign the course. So, you have to write COs. If you are rewriting the COs, the content given by the university is your starting point. That is what it means. And this is the format of writing COs. You have a course code. Course code will be, we can say, some 302, that means third semester second course, something like that. Each institute may follow a certain course code, or the university may give you the course code. You have to use that course code, put dot and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or you can have more number of COs, and you have to write the statement in this particular table. So, first thing is you have to write your course outcomes in this form. So, this is an example of the course is analog circuits and systems, and credits are 3:0:1, and you have to also give it year of offering. You may change from one year to the other. So, to that extent, say you are offering this course in 2020-2021. So, the course outcome, as you can see, C202.1 is the C202 is the course code, and 1 is the CO1, you can say. And this is an example how we have written. There happen to be only 6 course outcomes for this. First thing that you have to do is you have to write your course outcomes in the format that has been shown for all the courses for all the semesters, and you present it to the in the SAR only for 3 courses, 1 course taken from second, third and final year. Now, let us look at sub-criterion 3.1.2 for tier 2 colleges. And the criterion is sub-criterion states that CO, PO, PSO matrices of courses selected in 3.1.1. So, you have to present 6 matrices in this, and it carries 5 marks. And when you are creating a matrix for this, you have to have an explanation of the table, how you are creating the table, what are the rules that you followed for the table, for preparing the table. And assessment is that of mapping to be verified for at least 2 matrices. That committee will pick out of the 6 some 2 matrices and finds that whether that mapping is satisfactory as per the requirements of NBA. So, this becomes a subjective evaluation by the visiting team. Now, let us look at how the explanation needs to be written or prepared. First thing is tag COs with POs, PSOs, cognitive level, knowledge categories and number of sessions or hours. Okay. This has been presented already in detail in module 1. So, we are just repeating that this is the process one goes through. And the action verb used in CO and its match with action verbs found explicitly or implicitly in POs and PSOs forms the basis of mapping COs to those POs and PSOs. How do you tag a CO with PO? You look at your CO statement, look at the action verb used and then look at the action verbs that are already exist in POs or PSOs. For example, in a PO you may like take PO2 for example, it says identify, formulate, research literature and so on. It uses some of these action verbs. Formulate is an action verb. So, what you have to see, the way CO has been written by you, the action verb, does it match explicitly or implicitly? Sometimes PO statements are a little bit indirect, to that extent implicitly, and if they are there, then you can say that CO is mapped to that particular PO or PSO. If PSOs are written well, COs of a course map generally to a single PSO. Generally they get mapped into. So, a particular course if you take, you are likely to say same PSO for every CO of that course. And now these are desirable. It is desirable a CO to map a CO to 1 or 2 of the first 5 POs which are disciplinary in nature. Okay, first 5 POs as we have explained in module 1 extensively, and at least one of the professional POs, that is from PO 6 to PO 12, if we can do that, then it is possible that we are likely to achieve right kind of balance between all the courses and the POs. Okay. And there is also a danger, if a CO is mapped to too many POs, it can become difficult to conduct the instruction, and also to convince anybody that I am actually conducting my instruction to meet all the POs that I have selected. And also it becomes difficult to demonstrate the attainment of selected POs. Demonstration is through what? The way I have conducted my assessment, and if somebody inspects your assessment items and then say which assessment item is going to meet your particular selected PO, that department should be able to explain. So, to that extent, if there are too many POs, it becomes very difficult to demonstrate the attainment of selected POs. So, these are the points or these are the issues that you have to keep in mind when you write your explanation. So, this is how we presented earlier also. These are the COs of this particular course, and we create a table like this, like first POs and PSOs, and then cognitive level, KC's knowledge category, number of class sessions and number of lab hours that you have, and it works out to be 3:0:1 kind of thing. Because our goal is to prepare a matrix of a course, that CO-PO matrix of a course. How do we do that? Just because we wrote this particular PO is addressed by the CO, you also have to talk about to what extent does it address. Does it address it very strongly or substantially, or it just slightly. So, you have to find a method of the strength of mapping of a CO to a PO. So, these correlation levels are converted into 3 levels, quantized into 3 levels, 1, 2 or 3, like 1 is slightly or very low correlation, 2 is moderate or medium, and 3 is substantial. And if you say there is no correlation with respect to one particular CO and a PO, you just put a dash, because that is required by NBA. You have to make entries only as 1, 2, 3 or dash, and you have to prepare a similar table for PSO also. And you have to give an explanation. This explanation will be again subjectively evaluated by the visiting committee. So, this is how the structure of CO PO matrix will be. So, you have all the 6 COs written there, and the last row is only, as you can see, it is not a CO, it is only course code only. So, based on the entries in the 6 rows there, you compute an average in some way and put it into the last row. So, essentially CO PO matrix you convert into a single row with respect to the course code. Now, the last row that we have created is important, and it indicates the strength to which each PO is addressed by the entire course, not by a single CO. It is expected to make entries into all the cells of matrix other than the last row, and the software of the software tool at NBA computes the average of the entries in the column. Now, how do I select the strength to which? You have to make only entries 1, 2, 3 and a dash, but how do I arrive at that? We have also given this explanation in the module 1. For example, each entry can be made intuitively taking the features of CO statement and the cognitive activities implied by the POs. But what happens in this, any 2 faculty members who are concerned with the course are likely to differ with this when you are doing it intuitively, depending on what kind of information he has in mind with respect to the CO and PO. So, what happens, they are likely to differ. That means if you take a particular CO and PO, each one may be of they may put 1 or 2 or 3 or dash kind of thing. In that case, when you take the average of the column, it will be a non-integer value. We personally recommend that you do not stick to an intuitive approach, which may look very easy and simple, but if you take across all departments or even across a department, different people are likely to come to different conclusions when you do it intuitively. So, some kind of an objective method should be used. We proposed one justifiable objective method in M1 U20. So, what happens, that method will directly give you the last row of the matrix the way we presented, and that means instead of computing the last row, you already got the last row and you make the same entry in each one of the relevant rows. Okay. And then what happens, when you take the average, it becomes an integer. Let's take a look at this. That means I have first computed C302, that last row. The same that one is copied into all the COs. That is what it means. And then the software tool at the NBA will compute the average of this, and similarly you do it for PSO, and then it will produce the final row. That is what we require. One row for one course is required. Now, we come to criterion 3.1.3 of tier 2 institution. Now, the criterion itself is program level course PO PSO matrix of all courses including the first year courses. So, you have to create a matrix with maybe 30 to 40 rows in that, and you have 12 POs. So, to that extent these 12 columns, and then you may have about 40 rows. That is the kind of table that one has to create. and you need to write an explanation of the tables, how you are creating, how you are computing the average from that. See, that explanation itself carries about 10 marks. And what is the exhibit or what is to be the document that will be assessed? Mapping to be verified for at least one course per year of study, program outcomes, program specific outcomes getting mapped with the core courses are also to be verified, and this will be subjective evaluation by the visiting team. And how do we have this? So, as I already mentioned, this is called program PO articulation matrix, and if you have C101 is one entire course C101, and we talked about the entries into this table. As you can see, 2 PO1 is to the strength 2, PO2 is not addressed at all, that is why I put a dash, and so on. We create like that for all the activities which are core activities. That means including the project or any other kind of core activity that you have, you can add a row for that. So, from this you have to compute the average. Similarly, for PSO you try to add rather fill this particular table. It is called program PSO articulation matrix. So, the PO and program PO and program PSO articulation matrices have to be shown separately. Okay. And all the detailed computation or detailed presentations were made in the module 1 itself, that is why we are not again repeating that here. Now, we come to the difference of all these activities with respect to tier 1 institution. Tier 1 institutions are responsible for designing their own curricula, and the department is responsible for writing the COs of all courses and establishing the correlation between COs and PSOs. So, that is the responsibility of the department, and this correlation between the COs and the POs and PSOs is to be formalized by Board of Studies of the department and possibly approved by the academic council of the institution. And here, instead of talking about 3.1.1, 1.2 and so on, here in tier 1 institution, the guidelines, there is only one set of guidelines that are given, there are no sub criteria for this. But if you look at the guidelines, A, C, D are practically the same as 3.1.1, 1.2, 1.3 kind of thing. So, guidelines are evidence of COs being defined for every course. So, you have to show the evidence that you are written COs for all courses. And the additional thing, namely availability of COs embedded in the syllabi, that is the additional sub criterion under this, and C and D are the same as that of 3.1.2 and 1.3. Now, just quickly, A is related to evidence of COs being defined for every course, carries 5 marks. COs need to be written for all courses of the program, while NBA does not mandate use of revised Bloom's taxonomy framework for writing COs. It has been the de facto accepted framework. In this framework, COs are written starting with an action verb followed by knowledge elements and conditions and criteria. So, what is the exhibit that we look at? CO statements for at least one course each from second, third and final year of study. If those are presented, then the committee will have a subjective evaluation of the appropriateness of CO statements. That is what the evaluation would be. B is availability of COs embedded in syllabi, that carries 5 marks. Normally syllabus is presented as a list of topics. There should be complete correspondence between CO and the list of topics besides COs indicating the depth to which topic is addressed. That is where one has to take care, and that is where the role of writing good COs comes in. does the CO really represents the depth to which a particular topic is addressed. And exhibit is a brief explanation for each course on how COs are embedded in the syllabus. This is again subjective evaluation by the visiting team. The C is explanation of course articulation matrix table be ascertained, which carries 5 marks. They explain the basis for considering a CO to be addressing a PO or a PSO. The course articulation matrix is to be prepared as indicated in slides 19 and 20 of this particular unit. And the exhibit, the matrices that are prepared for at least 2 courses will be evaluated subjectively by the visiting team. And D is explanation of program articulation matrix tables to be ascertained. It carries 10 marks. And you have to explain the basis for determining the strength to which a PO addresses a given PO or PSO. We have explained, we have given one method of objective method of doing it. If you differ, if your department differs with that, you have to write what is the criterion that you are using to determine the strength to which a CO addresses a given PO. Explain the basis for determining the course PO matrix. A PO articulation row is to be worked out. And mapping for at least one course per year of study, program outcomes and program specific outcome getting mapped with the core courses as explained in the same unit slides 21 and 22 will be subjectively evaluated by the visiting team. Okay. And in the next unit we will try to understand how to present the attainment of COs, POs and PSOs as per NBA criteria 3.2 and 3.3 for tier 2 and tier 1 institutions. Thank you very much.